I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Molly Hughes, Production Designer on the gripping drama 13 Lives. Molly, as a production designer on this film, you had the daunting task of creating the main attraction, these intricate caves, and they had to look real, meaning the texture and the color and the ability to light and shoot within it had to be perfect, so no pressure, right?
Right, right.
Talk me through the process. What was the research phase and pre-production like when you're trying to establish a baseline for achieving this level of authenticity?
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for having me today, by the way. Um, so I think the biggest issue for us, we were making, as some of these other films and people we're talking to here today, we were making the film during COVID, kind of at the height of COVID. We started working on the film. And so it became evident pretty quickly that we were not going to be able to shoot in Thailand, at least not for most of the shoot. We had very high hopes we'd get to Thailand toward the end of our shoot for beauty shots and some real shots within the streets and of people and rice fields and all of those things. So we sort of had to put that on the back burner and focus on how are we going to create, this world that so many people witnessed and were on their televisions over the summer of 2018 when they were kind of glued to this event and not knowing what the outcome was going to be at that time. Now, by the time we were making the film, everyone knows what happens. And it's, I think, a little like, Ron makes some films like that. He made Apollo 13 and everyone knew the outcome of that. So he really guided this process of research and storytelling over Zoom with me for several months before we were able to head off to Australia. And that was a really invaluable period. I mean, I had a line producer say to me once, movies are made in prep. And I believe this movie was absolutely 100% the heart of it, made in prep, at least from a design standpoint. So we had the good fortune of our producer was also making a documentary about the film at the same time. And we had access to hours and hours of video, of interviews, of video footage, of photographs. We had a National Geographic scan of the real cave that we had access to. So it was almost like so much information trying to distill all, to kind of weed through that to get to what is the movie we're trying to make. And in our case, I think for me, it was really about more than geographical authenticity. It was about storytelling, authenticity, of cultural authenticity, and technical authenticity. So, if we were unclear how these divers really did this, and if we weren't sure of our scuba skills and how all of that worked, then we would have been called out on it. So that was a kind of simultaneous challenge that was happening as we were trying to figure out how to build the case.
Yeah.
And then I think the biggest thing was really we needed to find how we were going to do it, where we were going to build the exterior of the cave. I think a lot of people were surprised that the exterior is built. There's a very good visual effects extension above the entrance that makes it feel very integrated into the hillside. That seems real, but we did in fact build that. And then from that, we had to find a place for the entrance, the base camps, these governors' buildings. So that was sort of phase one. And phase two was the interior caves and how we were going to do that. We did not have access to tanks. So we had to find a place to build tanks, and we had to figure out how many tanks to build, which was kind of an extensive undertaking unto itself. So once we solved those two key problems, the location for the exterior and the finding a space large enough to house 4 100-foot long tanks for the interior, then we could really settle in, and work through the design.
And so how much work goes into modeling and concept art? And like, did you have to create this on a smaller scale? Because I just can't imagine how difficult it is to create something that looks amazing. Then the tanks, the requirements of a film set, lights, rigging, people need to move in there to film the damn thing. Like, I'm already getting a headache just thinking about the technical side of your creative job, which is to make it look amazing. So talk me through that particular struggle.
Yeah, so you're right. There are a lot of people involved that the caves have to work for and be successful for. Cinematography, stunts, underwater divers, actors, first and foremost. So the process was surprisingly natural. I worked on Harry Potter for many years, and we did a number of caves on that. And I was familiar with the process, and did, spoke to our construction coordinator from that, and sort of, got some guidance about which direction to go and what were the pitfalls that, to avoid. So we started with 3D models because we were virtual at that point. So we had, I would do drawings by hand. I still draw by hand. I'm not a computer draftsman. I'm of a generation of hand draftsmen. So draftspersons. So I drew some I did some plans and sections by hand that I then emailed over to some savvy 3D modelers. So one person was in the UK, another person was in Australia. We were kind of all over, just trying to get people who were available to help us. And then we would start working out these 3D models. And at the same time, I had hired an illustrator, and he was helping me work out how we wanted to light them, because the biggest question everybody had was, how are we going to see anything? You build these dark caves, nobody can see anything. What's the point? So for Ron, it was, we needed to be able to see actors' faces, and we needed to see what the dangers were in front of them. So those kind of things are where we started. But it really, I think we started with 3D models. We moved at one point, when we finally got into Australia and our location, we moved into virtual. And we found very quickly that the claustrophobic nature of the caves and virtual reality did not go well together. The VR worked really well for our exterior cave, for everyone to see what it would be like to be at the bottom of the stairs, at the top of the stairs, looking down. But once we had the fully enclosed spaces, we found people had a very difficult time navigating those in virtual reality. I don't know if you've had any experience with that, but it can make you kind of car sick when you're in the space, and really it was difficult for people. So we abandoned that with the interiors, and then we went into carved models from there. So we used, every method for the last 40 years of design, really, to create the caves. And the beauty of the carved models was you could get the accuracy of texture into them.
That's right.
Which you can't get in the 3D models. So it was sort of like the 3D models helped us with the storytelling, helped us come up with the events with Ron. What happens if someone is trapped and has to go on their stomach? What if they have to go on their side? What if you have to push a child through before you so you can both fit? What if you get stuck? What if there's a collapse? And so we created events based on, and each set had an event or two. Where someone drowned, that was an event. There's where they have to turn back when there's a sort of a water collapse at the beginning, that was an event. So that's how we started the design approach of the interiors, and just kind of kept refining and refining from there. And then by the end, we were building full-size mock-ups out of a kind of chicken wire frame and canvas, and everyone could then climb through those if they chose to do so. And our stunt divers did that, and our second unit director did that. Ron did that. Everyone, just to get a real feel for what you were dealing with, which was very successful for us.
When I watched this movie a little while ago, I mean, before I knew that I was going to be talking to you, I kept thinking, I wonder where they shot this. It's the beautiful caves. It looks. I think a lot of people will go into this not realizing that you made these. That's
successful. That's great. That's great. But then you think there was a lot of effort involved by a lot of people in this.
Absolutely. But I mean, on that, I'm still getting over your production design for I'm thinking of ending things, and so you've got to be a
little different.
A little different. Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
it shows your it shows that you're so you can do all kinds of things. But look, I think, yeah, great work on 13
Thank
Lives. We're
you.
gonna
I
bring
mean,
you
they're
back.
both about claustrophobia a little bit, right?
Exactly.
Both albums, so I can do
Maybe that's a theme
claustrophobia.
for your career going forward. We'll see. I don't know.
Thanks. Great.
Thanks, Molly. We'll bring you back shortly for our group chat.
Okay, great. Thanks. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.